Welcome to the Crossing's online service. I'm Josh, the student pastor here, and I get to be your host for today. The Crossing is the place people go to explore faith and experience the life-changing ways of Jesus. If you're interested in exploring more of what it means to be a part of the Crossing, how to connect with others, or grow in your unique talents, or make a difference, you can begin Growth Track, our self-guided experience to get to know the Crossing, yourself, and God. It's ready and waiting for you at thecrossing.com/growth track. Now today's video goes like this. A sermon from our lead pastor, Andrew Brownback, to get us motivated and inspired, then a song to help us worship God and think about what we just learned, and then I'll be back with an update from Pomona Elementary's principal, Cindy Pedroso, and a couple next steps to help you grow in your faith. We hope that this video helps you, and if you like it, please share it with friends and family. Enjoy!
Welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm the lead pastor here at the Crossing Church. And today we're going to jump right in because I believe God has something He wants to do in and through us today. Today I want to talk to you about a process I've been on and a question I've been asking myself over these last few months. Now here it is. How does the church respond to a broken and hurting world? And I want to emphasize the word respond because we live in a world where it's easy to identify problems, isn't it? About a year and a half ago, my wife and I, we moved to a house that we had only seen during the day. Now, before moving in, we would walk into the living room, which had these huge, big glass windows, tons of natural light everywhere. But once we moved in, we realized that while there was a ceiling fan, there was no light. So we installed a light, flipped a switch, and nothing happened. At that moment, the genius that I am realized there is an electrical problem in this room. It took me all of 5 seconds to see the problem. That was the easy part. Now, responding to a problem, fixing it, that's a whole nother story. In fact, here we are, 18 months later, and still no light in that room. You see, it is easy to look at our world and see problems. They're everywhere. People who are sick, people who are out of work, depression, anger, mistrust, racism. Everyone sees the problems. The question I've been asking myself is, how does the church respond to a broken and hurting world? So today, we're going to look and tackle how the church responds, specifically how this church has and will continue to respond. And here's why this is so important. If you're new to our church or to faith, this is probably a question you've been asking. How should faith shape our response to the world we live in? And if you've been around our church for a while, this question matters because today we are going to set the tone for where we are going as a church. And I'm going to frame it around our time today around just 2 verses. They are verses that I have never heard a pastor speak about. In 20 plus years of studying the Bible, I've never honestly even noticed these verses until just a few months ago when I was reading, and it felt like they jumped off the page. And since that time, I've thought about these 2 verses almost every day. I've studied them, reflected on them, and memorized them. And today we are going to go through them phrase by phrase. They're found in the book of 1 Corinthians, which was written by a guy by the name of Paul, who God put on this earth to speak His words to the church both then and now. And at the end of this magnificent letter, Paul says in chapter 16, verse 13, he says, "Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. Do everything in love." This first phrase, be on your guard, it could also be translated, stay awake. Anyone else find it's harder and harder to stay awake the older you get? Throw a me in the comments right now if that's you, because it's for sure me. I remember way back when I was in college, my nights would usually begin around 11 p.m. That's when I'd get together with some buddies and we would make a plan for what we were going to do that night. Now that I'm old, the greatest moment of my day is when I get to lay down on my incredibly expensive mattress around 10 p.m. and go to bed. In fact, I was meeting with a group of people recently at the church, and we had a 20-minute conversation on what is the best mattress and best pillow out there. Now, I never would have been part of that conversation 20 years ago, but now I love sleep. In fact, it's one of my favorite hobbies. But you see, Paul, he tells us here that spiritually, one of the greatest threats we face is falling asleep and missing out on what is happening right around us. Let me give you a very real example from my own life. A few months ago, I had a parent-teacher conference for my oldest son. Found out he was doing incredibly great in school. Socially, his teacher said he was a delight to have in class. He was doing great in every subject, and he's this amazing reader, which, if you think I'm bragging about my son, I am, because he's awesome. But to be fair, all of these wonderful traits do come from my wife, not from me. But that's not the point. At the end of this call, his teacher, who is great, she told us that we should consider buying some books to continue to challenge our son, Evan. And she gave us some recommendations, and she made this comment. She said, "Oh, I have a ton of these books," the one she was recommending. She said, "I have a ton of these. I would love to let you borrow some, but because of COVID, we're not allowed to." Now, we got off the Zoom call, and I went directly to Amazon, and I started searching for these books she recommended. And I don't know why, but I just got so annoyed. I was looking at the price of these books, and I think the total for all of them was somewhere around about $50. And so I'm sitting there on my computer, and I'm just starting to grumble, like muttering under my breath. I don't know if you ever do this. I'm like sitting there typing, and I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, this is stupid. Why do I have to spend $50 on books that are just sitting on a classroom? What a complete waste. Stupid COVID ruining everything. And I'm sitting there, I'm frustrated, I'm feeling sorry for myself. Now let me give you a little context. This is about 3 weeks after we did this huge push to provide resources for a local school whose community probably suffered more job loss than any other in our community. Some of you will remember this. This was about 4 days after I sat down with a parent who was in tears because of how difficult and draining it was for them navigating work and their kids' Zoom schedule. And here I am, surrounded by people with real challenges, and I'm sitting on my computer in this moment, and I'm complaining about buying a couple of books. You know what Paul would have said to me in that moment? Wake up, Andrew. He would have said, you're complaining because your child is doing great, and you have to spend a couple of dollars on books that you can honestly afford because your wife and you are both still employed? Really? That's your biggest complaint today? Wake up. And I think that is the exact message God has for a lot of us today, especially in the church world. It's to wake up, get outside of our little world and see what's going on out there. I don't know if you know this, but the church, and I'm not talking about the crossing right now, but I'm talking about the overall church. It doesn't exactly have the best reputation right now. I did a little experiment this week. I asked some of my friends who don't go to church, aren't interested in church, I asked them, what are the first words that come to your mind when you hear the word church? In fact, I asked this guy the other day, and his eyes got all big. And he was like, Andrew, you're a really good dude. But I'm afraid if I tell you what I really think about church, you won't want to be friends with me anymore. I asked a handful of people, and here's what they came back with. They told me that when they hear the word church, they think of hypocrisy, anti-LGBTQ, they think of anti-immigration, anti-poor people. Again, this is not my opinion, this is their opinion of the church. There was no mention of love, of grace, of forgiveness, of hope. Even the name Jesus never made the list. And if you think this group of people I asked is unique, do your own experiment this week and see what happens. You see, you'll find that we in the church, we have to wake up. We have to see the pain and the brokenness around us. And you see, the great thing about these couple of verses is the rest of this little passage explains how. Paul says, be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. One of the most famous stories Jesus told, it's found in Matthew chapter 7. It's the story about two men who are both building houses. Then a storm comes and wipes out one of the houses because it was built on sand. Now the other house, it survives because it was built on a firm foundation. Jesus' point in this story is that every single one of us is building a house. We're building a life. And every single one of us is going to face some storms. The question is, what will happen to you when a storm comes? Today we probably see this clearer than we ever have before, don't we? We see people all over the place that are building their lives on things that simply won't last. I see people who are building their lives on a career, and then suddenly they're downsized. I see people who are building their lives on their kids, who eventually will move out of their house. I see people who are building their lives on their physical appearance, who will eventually grow old. You see, when a storm comes, and storms will always come into our lives, it exposes the foundation. It's why I'm so excited hearing all these amazing stories out of our rooted groups. I love that we have people who every week are digging into what God says about our world and our lives. You see, they're choosing to build their lives on something that will last, a firm foundation. All right, we're going to keep going. The next phrase Paul says is he says, be courageous, be strong. Older translations, they don't use the word courageous. They say, act like a man. So why don't you just take a second, and I want you to write in the comments, write who you think of when I say like a manly man. Like who comes to mind first for you? I'll give you a second to do that. Feel free, just write it in the comments right now. Some of you, maybe you're thinking of Ron Swanson, a no-nonsense, meat-eating dude with an amazing mustache. Or maybe some of you know who this is. This is Uncle Rico. You probably remember him from Napoleon Dynamite. He was the star of his high school football team. He was so manly, he could throw a football over a mountain. You know, those are good, but the manliest man is obvious. It's Chuck Norris. Did you know when Chuck Norris falls in water, Chuck Norris doesn't get wet, water gets Chuck Norris? Or did you know Chuck Norris sleeps with a nightlight? Not because Chuck Norris is afraid of the dark, but the dark is afraid of Chuck Norris. I got 100 of these, but I'll stop now. You feel free to throw your favorite Chuck Norris joke in the comments, and I'll read them all, and I will absolutely love them. But did you know, to be courageous, it doesn't mean you have the greatest mustache. It doesn't mean you hold your high school football team's passing records. The Greek word for courage, it's the word andrizomai, which is where we get the word Andrew. True story. So when you think of courage, don't think about Chuck Norris, think of me, Andrew. But seriously, here's what courage is in the Bible. Courage is the choice to go where no one else will because of one belief: God is with me. One of the things I have loved about our church from the very beginning is that this church has always been courageous. Years ago, the leaders of our church, they looked out at our city and they saw that there were white churches and very few flourishing Hispanic churches back then. And they saw that this isn't right, that we need to do something. That the church, it isn't just for a certain group of people or a certain ethnicity, that Jesus is for everyone. And so we as a church, we started the Crossing in Espanol. And now our church is one of the most diverse churches I have ever seen. And the Crossing in Espanol is flourishing. Years ago, our church saw that one of the greatest needs in our city was around homelessness and addiction. And so we began hosting LOTS, which stands for Life on the Streets, and partnering with great organizations like Trellis, where even in the midst of a pandemic, we provide weekly care, hope, and food for our friends who are homeless. In fact, just last week, we offered up our parking structure as a shelter for the city in case of rain for our homeless friends. And we launched Lifelines years ago, which is our recovery ministry. And they continue to meet online. And we have a plan to relaunch Lifelines very soon on this campus. You see, it's easy to build a church where everyone looks the same, thinks the same, and comes from the same type of background. But it takes courage to build a church where you have people watching right now online, people who have been living on the street, and then also people who are right now visiting their second home in Newport Beach. We have people who are watching right now online who are part of struggling with substance addiction, and people today who are watching from a penthouse suite. We have single moms and empty nesters. We have young, old, rich, poor. We have people who support the Republican Party, some who support the Democratic Party, and we have people who just plain like to party at our church. You see, it takes courage to be part of a church like this, to build a church like this. So how do we respond to a broken and hurting world? We do it with courage. We move into the spaces that others don't. And we do this with unwavering courage because of our belief that God is with us. Now, it feels like we can end right there, doesn't it? It feels that if we just wake up to a hurting world, if we stand firm in our faith, if we live with courage that God is with us, it sounds like that's enough, doesn't it? But Paul, our author, he has one more thing to say. How do we respond to a broken and hurting world? Verse 14. He says, do everything in love. Do everything in love. Not do some things, not do most things, but do everything in love. And I know some of you are saying right now, but Andrew, you don't understand what my ex has done. They deserve what's coming to them. Do everything in love. But Andrew, do you see what that moron posted on social media? Someone has to put them in their place. Do everything in love. But Andrew, don't you understand? Didn't you see what that political party just tried to get away with? We have to get them back. Do everything in love. You want to memorize a Bible verse that will change your life? Just memorize this one. 1 Corinthians 16:14. Do everything in love. Because love is not just a feeling. Love is an action. Love will cost you. The other day, I was watching my wife, and she had just gotten home from a long day at work, and the moment she walked in the door, our kids ran up to her. And before she could even get her coat off, they just started talking to her about Pokemon. My kids right now are way into talking and walking. They're like Pokemon encyclopedias. And I watched as my wife immediately got down to their level, and she just began to listen to them, to be with them, as they talked about all things Pokemon. Now, why would she do this? It's not because she loves Pokemon, but she did it out of love for them. Now, I'm talking to people pretty regularly right now that are part of our church who are trying to navigate aging parents. And they're trying, on top of everything else in their lives, they're trying to figure out extra care and visits and talking to healthcare providers and so much more. Now, why are they doing this? On top of their already busy schedules. I'll tell you, it's one word. It's the word love. You see, love always comes with a cost. Early in the pandemic, while the coronavirus was just becoming news here, Italy was caught off guard by a huge influx of cases and hospitalizations. In the northern part of Italy, John Giuseppe was a priest in a small town in Italy. He had just turned 72 years old, and he was known as this amazing, kind-hearted priest who would drive around town on a red motorcycle. Now, in March, when the coronavirus swept through his town, Father Don got sick. And because of his age, he was particularly at risk. And because his church loved him so, they all pitched in and they bought him a ventilator. It's a great story, right? But it doesn't end there. You see, Father Don, he refused to use that ventilator because in that hospital, there was another man, a man with no access to a ventilator, a man whose prognosis was just as bad as Father Don's, if not even worse. And so, in this incredible act of love, Father Don gave his ventilator to a man he had never met, someone who did nothing to deserve it. And so this unnamed, unknown man received an extraordinary gift of love. And this man, he lived. But Father Don, lying in a hospital bed just a few days later, he took his last breath and died. His final act on this earth, a gift of love, a gift that came at great cost. Now, why do you and I love stories like this? Why do they move us and stir something in us? I'll tell you. It's because deep down, we know that only love has the power to change someone. How do you respond to a hurting and broken world? I'll tell you, it's with love. Only love has the power to change a human heart. Only love can move and turn hurt into healing. Only love that requires sacrifice, love that costs something can do this. And this is also our story. You see, our story is that we have a God who saw the brokenness and the pain in this world. We have a God who, in a great act of courage, came to this earth. Jesus. Emmanuel, which means God with us. Jesus came and he took on the sin and the mistakes and the pain onto himself. Jesus said it this way. He said, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." And that is exactly what Jesus did. He gave his life. He died on a cross out of love for you and for me. And so today, we can do everything in love because of how he loved us. We can be strong and courageous because he was strong and courageous. We can stand firm because he is with us. He will never leave us. So today, what is the church's response to a broken world? To be on your guard. Wake up. To stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. And do everything in love. And how do we do this? It's because of how he loved us. So today, I want to close our time together with two next steps. First, I'm going to say a prayer for you. And I want to pray for two specific groups. I know there are some of you who are watching that you have never accepted Jesus' act of love, costly love, and sacrifice into your life. And so if that's you, in a moment, I'm going to say a prayer over you. And what I'm going to ask you to do at the end of this time together is I'm going to ask you to shoot me an email at andrew@thecrossing.com and let me know that you prayed this prayer for the first time, because I want to celebrate and be there for you. And then second, I want to say a prayer and I want to invite you in this moment. I want to invite you into a journey of what God has in store for our church in this upcoming year. I want to invite you to wake up, to stand firm, to be courageous, and to do everything in love and see what God has in store for us. So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to get a chance for Kimi and the band to sing a song over us. Let's pray. And so, God, we come before you today, and we thank you that because of your love, we can now respond to a hurting and broken world in love. And so, God, today I want to pray for every person watching this that for the very first time is going to receive this gift of sacrifice and love that you have for us. And so, Father, forgive us. And thank you for the gift of new life that you offer us. And then second, God, I'm praying for every single one of us. We live in a hurting and broken world today. And so, God, I pray that we together as a church journey together to bring hope and healing into this world with love. God, we love you. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh. Jesus, the name above every other name. Yes. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside.
I'm Josh, student pastor here at The Crossing. Thanks for being with us today. These last few minutes together are designed to give you the next steps you need to experience the life-changing ways of Jesus. When we build our lives on God's values, our faith grows and we discover strength and joy beyond what we thought was possible. One of those values is serving other people. At The Crossing, there are so many good ways to volunteer, but what I want to highlight for you today is serving with TC Kids and Crossing Student Ministries. The young people at The Crossing need your help. This is a rough time for kids and students, and the more people who are willing to help, the more chance we have to help kids and students build healthy and connected relationships with God during these important years. A couple hours of your time can change the life of a kid or student in the years to come. Please email us today at info@thecrossing.com if you are even curious about what it's like to volunteer. You may just be the exact person a kid needs right now. And as you reach out to us to volunteer and make a difference here, you should also know that The Crossing is known for the ways that we make a difference both in our community and around the world. One of the ways that we like to give back is through our partnership with a local elementary school. Here's Cindy Pedroso from Pomona Elementary with a quick thank you to you, The Crossing family.
Hi everyone, my name is Cindy Pedroso and I'm the principal of Pomona Elementary. I have come to be connected to The Crossing, if you recall, 2 years ago when I was first hired as a principal there, and I met these wonderful people that volunteered at my school, and I just felt it was so important to continue to have that relationship, and so here I am today. And I'm so grateful for all the support that The Crossing has provided and just been such a huge impact for us. My students have received headphones. My staff benefit from using those headphones as well. We've just had such a wonderful connection. Just most recently, we had a family that was impacted by a fire and The Crossing jumped right in to support them. We've been able to, through this support, deliver groceries and just so many wonderful opportunities to help our families these past 2 years. And so for me, it's super important to continue to have this relationship. I'm so grateful for it and I'm so thankful. And, even me personally, I've been able to connect, which has been such a huge impact for my family. We watch The Crossing online and that's been a huge shift for us since moving here from Florida. We found our home here as Crossing as well. So I just want to thank you for your continued support, for always being there for our community and our students and for me. And hopefully we'll continue to have this great relationship for years to come.
Any of you who have given to The Crossing, thank you. It's no small thing to give resources away when our own lives are unpredictable, but nothing grows our faith like helping someone else. Please consider setting up regular giving in 2021 so we can help people and see more lives change for the better. You can give on our app or on our website at thecrossing.com. Every donation makes a big difference. Finally, next week we start a new series called Mixtape, I'm Still Into You. This series is going to be a fun way to reconnect with our most important relationships. The videos premiere Saturday at 5:30 p.m. and are available on demand anytime on our website at thecrossing.com, our YouTube page, or our Facebook page. Or you can join us on campus at The Crossing on Sundays at 9:15 and 11:15. Thanks for being with us. We will see you soon. And until then, here's a little promo to get us in the mixtape mood. Enjoy!
Hi, I'm Justin. This is my wife, Rachel, and we're really looking forward to the start of our new series, Mixtape. I mean, it's hard to believe we've been married for 14 years.
Yes and no.
No, come on. So here's the question. We've been married for a while. When we got together, did you have a song for us? Did we have a song together?
No.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't have a song.
We had a song, Boys to Men, Water Runs Dry, because I felt like Rachel was making the biggest mistake of her life by not saying yes to going out
Makes
with
sense.
me.
I said no a lot.
And one of the things we've realized as we've been together is there's been a number of promises we've made to each other.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first one being a promise to make you a priority.
Yeah, I think priority's been really great. I think the second has been the promise to pursue you.
For sure, yeah. And I think the third one would be a promise to be partners.
Yeah, I think a partnership and us working together has been so helpful
So
for us.
important, yeah.
I think 4, the promise of passion.
For sure. Passion.
Been a lot of passion.
A lot of passion, yes.
And we've just realized that it's not just a one-time commitment. It's us committing to it over and over again.
Over and over again, every day.
Yeah, and then if ever we feel like we've got it right, we just decide to start back at 1.
That's right.
Oh, we're going to add that to the mixtape.